Welcome to Far From Eden. Someone asked me in the chat during the premiere last night, why are you talking about all the things that should be or the way it used to be, particularly the way it used to be? Since, why bother talking about the way things were set up before the Industrial Revolution, so to speak, or before feminism, or before this, or before that? Why bother? And I think at first I was like, hey, because it's important. But I thought, it's important to articulate it. We have to, in my opinion, we should understand how it is supposed to be. And when, if ever, it was that way, because it helps us find our true north. How can you be, if you're lost, if society is lost, how is it ever going to go the way it should go if you don't know what way that is? And if you don't know that we ever did it in the past? A map is helpful. And a map not only shows you where you're going, it shows you which way you're coming from. I'm going to age myself again. You remember, like, back, I guess there still are malls, but, it'd be like, you are here. You go to a big map anywhere. Probably they have them at, amusement parks and stuff. You go up to a map and it says, you are here. Why is that important? Exactly. You have to know what came before to understand where you are and what the possibilities are of going forward. To me, that's seems to be important. I also think, because I probably took a little extra time thinking about this, I also think that in this day and age, the term mental health gets used constantly. Constantly. It's an excuse for everything. It's a reason for everything. And who's to say what's bad behavior and what's mental health problems? It's getting to the point of ridiculousness. And maybe the reason, and I'm just going to say the reason we're so messed up is because our internal being, who we are, our DNA itself knows this isn't right. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't right. People are not supposed to be so isolated. People are not supposed to focus everything on career. People are not supposed to generally, especially females, are not supposed to generally be childless. And we just start saying, oh, he's mentally ill, she's mentally ill. And it's like, maybe some people are malfunctioning because of this weird way that Western society has organized all of us. So I just wanted to start off with saying that, because I think, and I know that many of you are grateful to talk about and hear about old things from the past, where we've come from, who we were. That's why in Orwell's 1984, Winston has the profession he has as the information guy. He's in charge of erasing news stories from before that no longer serve the party's, whatever the party wants, whatever the propaganda is that the party wants. Does that sound familiar? And so it's almost like erasing the past, changing the past, affects how people think right now. How can people understand where this turmoil is coming from when it's within them, if they don't understand how far from Eden we are. Eden was perfect. And we've traveled a long way. And I don't personally think that's good. So we have good old Grimm Brothers today. I was thinking, again, I usually choose at random. However, I remembered the one video that my sister and I pretty much wore out. We watched the most for, probably from ages, I think I was 7 to 10. And it was Sleeping Beauty. Don't ask me why it was that one. Perhaps you guys remember when they'd have like a special. It's like, oh, for this time only, you can buy this Disney classic on VHS. Maybe that's because it was the only one we had. Maybe Cinderella and Snow White were not available. It could be that. But I realized, well, wait a second. Snow White was Grimm Brothers. Cinderella was Grimm Brothers. I need to find Sleeping Beauty, knowing it may not be called that. And sure enough, I looked at one that something about Rosebud. I remember that the little fairies nicknamed her Briar Rose when they had her in, this is from the Disney cartoon, when they had her in hiding. They were hiding her from the fate that Maleficent had cursed her with. And it was Briar Rose. So I thought, okay, well, let me see. And there was one called Rosebud. And I just read a little bit and I was like, oh, it's here. So let's see. Let's see what Disney did to this one. Sleeping Beauty, I think, came out third of the 3 Disney princess movies. I know it was Snow White first. I think Cinderella was next, followed by Sleeping Beauty. But this would be still, goodness gracious, Snow White was in the 1930s. So this is, middle of the 20th century, I can safely say. Did I forget to look it up? Yeah, I'm too excited. And I'm tired, it's Sunday. But yeah, I was too excited to read about it and share it with you guys. So in this beautiful treasure of a book, which, by the way, all the Grimm fairy tales that we've read so far are in a playlist on the channel. So if you want to, see which other ones we've done, please, check that out, because we have really dug up some eternal truths. Nothing new under the sun. We've turned up a lot of information about what people used to believe about female nature and what may or may not still be true. And very interesting. And we've also realized that, in these old stories, man, they are meant to teach a lesson. This is not just the entertainment. This is like, there are warnings, there are morals of the story. And so interesting that Disney, it's been through all this hoopla fairly recently of Disney, redoing all these movies, particularly Snow White, because they didn't even have dwarves. They had like, a bunch of, it was an eclectic group, to say the least. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, Disney's gone woke. And the Daily Wire did their own version of Snow White. And come to find out, the original Disney version of Snow White was already wokeified. It's just it's all relative, Snow White in the 30s being, brought out by Disney was woke for them. They just didn't understand, probably because cinema was so new and so dazzling. Kind of like social media was and still is for many who are absolutely captivated by it and therefore cannot see how poisonous it is. Not to be drawing comparisons to, the poison apple of Snow White. I am a little tired and I'm kind of just rambling. But I know you guys are so cool and so forgiving. And you've been so supportive whenever I make a mistake. You don't know how much it means to me. I beat myself up all the time. And it's a little difficult to be in a space where it's chameleon grifter. And I totally get why you guys say that, because I see those people too. And I'm like, oh yeah, I wouldn't trust me either if I didn't know me. But I'll tell you one thing, if I was all for the likes and views and all that, I wouldn't be reading Grimm Brothers fairy tales to you. You know, that's not where the action is. That's where most of the truth is. I wouldn't read Rudyard Kipling either. But, you know, again, I'm going to seek truth. Truth, beauty, and goodness. Those are the things I want to pursue. Okay, so it's called Rosebud by the Brothers Grimm. Rosebud. Once upon a time, there lived a king and queen who had no children, and this they lamented very much. But one day, as the queen was walking by the side of a river, a little fish lifted its head out of the water and said, "Your wish shall be fulfilled, and you shall soon have a daughter." Okay, that's already different. I don't remember them not being able to have maybe they waited to have a child and they finally did, but I like that they lamented that they couldn't have children. Because in this day and age, people act like children are just a burden and a hindrance to all the fun they're going to have and all the money they're going to make and spend on themselves. When the little fish had foretold, what the little fish had foretold soon came to pass. And the queen had a little girl that was so very beautiful that the king could not cease looking on it for joy and determined to hold a great feast. Because beauty in a female was very valuable. Even Disney didn't hide that originally. So he invited not only his relations, friends, and neighbors, but also all the fairies, that they might be kind and good to his little daughter. Now there were 13 fairies in his kingdom, and he had only 12 golden dishes for them to eat out of, so that he was obliged to leave one of the fairies without an invitation. The rest came, and after the feast was over, they all gave their best gifts to the little princess. One gave her virtue, another beauty, another riches, and so on, till she had all that was excellent in the world. When 11 had done blessing her, the 13th, who had not been invited, and was very angry on that account, came in and determined to take her revenge. Notice that the first gift mentioned that the fairies gave to the little princess was virtue. In the Disney movie, she's given the gift of beauty, the gift of song, the gift of something, but not virtue. Not virtue. They left that off the list. Okay, so this fairy that wasn't invited is going to take her revenge now. So she cried out, "The king's daughter shall in her 15th year be wounded by a spindle and fall down dead." I mean, she just didn't get invited to the party. And she's going to do that. However, that is also true in the Disney movie. When the 12th, who had not yet given her gift, came forward and said that she had, I'm so sorry, the MS is affecting my eyes today, and classes do not help with that, so I apologize. Then the 12th, who had not yet given her gift, came forward and said that the bad wish must be fulfilled, but that she could soften it, and that the king's daughter should not die, but fall asleep for 100 years. But the king hoped to save his dear child from the threatened evil and ordered that all the spindles in the kingdom should be brought up and destroyed. All the fairies' gifts were in the meantime fulfilled, for the princess was so beautiful and well-behaved and amiable and wise that everyone who knew her loved her. Well, it sounds like there were a lot of characteristics, not just beauty, that were very important. Now it happened that on the very day she was 15 years old, the king and queen were not at home, and she was left alone in the palace. So she roved about by herself and looked at all the rooms and chambers, till at last she came to an old tower, to which there was a narrow staircase ending with a little door. In the door there was a golden key, and when she turned it, the door sprang open, and there sat an old lady spinning away very busily. "Why, how now, good mother?" said the princess. "What are you doing there?" "Spinning," said the old lady, and nodded her head. "How prettily that little thing turns around," said the princess, and took the spindle and began to spin. Of course, she's never seen one, right? Because her dad destroyed all of them. So she's like, wow, this is amazing. But scarcely had she touched it before the prophecy was fulfilled, and she fell down lifeless on the ground. However, she was not dead, but had only fallen into a deep sleep. And the king and queen, who just then came home, and all their court fell asleep too. And the horses slept in the stables, and the dogs in the court, the pigeons on the housetops, and the flies on the walls, even the fire on the hearth, left off blazing and went to sleep. And the meat that was roasting stood still, and the cook, who was at that moment pulling the kitchen boy by the hair to give him a box on the ear for something he had done amiss, let him go, and both fell asleep, and so everything stood still and slept soundly. A large hedge of thorns soon grew round the palace, and every year it became higher and thicker, till at last the whole palace was surrounded and hid, so that not even the roof or the chimneys could be seen. But there went a report through all the land of the beautiful sleeping Rosebud, for so was the king's daughter called, so that from time to time several kings' sons came and tried to break through the thicket into the palace. This they could never do, for the thorns and bushes laid hold of them, as it were with hands, and there they stuck fast and died miserably. After many, many years, there came a king's son into that land, and an old man told him the story of the thicket of thorns, and how beautiful a palace stood behind it, in which was a wondrous princess called Rosebud, asleep with all her court. He told, too, how he had heard from his grandfather that many, many princes had come and had tried to break through the thicket, but had stuck fast and died. Then the young prince said, "All this shall not frighten me. I will go and see Rosebud." Okay. The old man tried to dissuade him, but he persisted in going. Now that very day were 100 years completed, and as the prince came to the thicket, he saw nothing but beautiful flowering shrubs, through which he passed with ease, and they closed after him as firm as ever. Then he came at last to the palace, and there in the court lay the dogs asleep, and the horses in their stables, and on the roof sat the pigeons, fast asleep, with their heads under their wings. And when he came into the palace, the flies slept on the walls, and the cook in the kitchen was still holding up her hand as if she would beat the boy, and the maid sat with a black fowl in her hand ready to be plucked. Then he went on still further, and all was so still that he could hear every breath he drew, till at last he came to the old tower and opened the door of the little room in which Rosebud was. And there she lay fast asleep, and looked so beautiful that he could not take his eyes off. And he stooped down and gave her a kiss. But the moment he kissed her, she opened her eyes and awoke and smiled upon him. Then they went out together, and presently the king and queen also awoke, and all the court, and they gazed on each other with great wonder. I bet it was weird. And the horses got up and shook themselves, and the dogs jumped about and barked. The pigeons took their heads from under their wings and looked about and flew into the fields. And the flies on the walls buzzed away. The fire in the kitchen blazed up and cooked the dinner, and the roast meat turned around again. The cook gave the boy the box on his ear so that he cried out, and the maid went on plucking the fowl. And then was the wedding of the prince and Rosebud celebrated, and they lived happily together all their lives long. Wow, it ended with a happy ending. Oh, goodness. I think I'm going to need you smart guys. This has got to have a lot of symbolism. So, okay. Rosebud. They knew, the king and queen knew that she, on her 15th birthday, didn't it say? Yes. The king's daughter shall in her 15th year be wounded by a spindle. Okay, so in her 15th year. All right. In the movie, it's like on her 16th or 17th birthday, something like that, that makes it PC for the time for her to fall in love with the prince and marry him. The day she turned 15, they weren't home. They weren't home. What? I have to find that spot because how are you going to leave your beautiful daughter home? How are you going to leave your beautiful daughter home the day she turns 15? Hold on, I'm looking for it. Where is it? On the very day she was 15 years old. Okay. The king and queen were not at home, and she was left all alone in the palace. Okay. There's a good lesson there. I know that to be true. I may not know with 100 years of sleep, although was there a 100-year war? I don't know, you guys. There might be some really good symbolism and different meanings here, but they left her home alone. She's 15. She's beautiful. She already has a curse upon her. How are you going to leave her home alone? And I think that is a huge lesson. The king was so bothered by this curse that he destroyed. He had all the spinning wheels destroyed in all of his kingdom. He did that, but he's not having someone be home to guard his daughter, especially in her 15th year. He's just like, oh yeah, it's probably fine. No. You have to watch your daughters. You can't just leave us to our own devices. We'll go find some spinning wheel, you know, and end up in a bad way. She was full. The other thing too that I think is important, I'm not sure the Grimm brothers knew that this needed to be, a lesson told, but it certainly does now. She was very well behaved. So she was very polite and sweet. She's not thinking, I don't know this old lady. She's not going to think that way. She's like, hi, what are you doing? Wow, that looks amazing. Really? You'll let me try? Wonderful. And there you go. That's all she wrote. Because when you're raised to be polite and well behaved, you can sometimes be polite and too well behaved to do what you need to do in a situation with a person who means you harm. And I think that there used to be a time when, people protected particularly their daughters from such people. And I mean, I'm going back. I'm not talking about the 1950s. I'm going back, 1800s. Lola is doing her version of breakdancing because she needs to get groomed. And for those of you who are friends of the channel, hi Garrett, Lola, I say Garrett because he was the first one that started talking about Lola. Anyway, whenever I am distracted by Lola, I'm reminded to please like and subscribe to the channel. Share the video with wherever you can. So what was I talking about? Oh yes, daughters used to be protected. And when you're polite, you don't know how do I engage with a person who is probably dangerous, but also I don't want to be rude. I actually deal with this myself, personally. I have had to be told, okay, I'll tell you a story. So somebody knocked on my door not that long ago. So I go to my door and I looked through the peephole. I did. See, I was being smart. Not really. And it was a bunch of kids. So I'm like, oh. So I opened the door and I'm like, hi, what's going on? And they were basically looking for money. And they said, we're trying to do stuff for money, or we're trying to do stuff for, it was really basic. It was not back in the day, Gen X, like, can I rake your yard or can I whatever? And I don't know what all we would do in an apartment. And I don't know if anybody knew where they were. But anyway, so they're at my door and they're basically wanting to do stuff for money. And I said, I don't really, have any chores and I don't have any cash on me. And the ringleader boy was like, do you have a credit card? And I was like, yes, but we won't be using it. So also, I don't know that you should be up here. Sort of like, do your parents know where you are? Anyway, so people who care about me were like, okay, just because they're kids doesn't mean that it's safe and that they're good and that you can trust. And I was getting pretty defeated about that. Just that's a thing. And I mean, yes, of course, I know. And of course, it was a male, pointing this out to me. And he's like, I understand. You were like, they're babies and they need help. And I was like, that's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, not in those words, but yeah, as soon as I saw them in my peephole, I was like, oh my gosh, the babies, they need help. And it's just been true. And a lot of it's because, you know, I've basically lived under a rock and been on the farm or just with, you know, horse people on different farms and stuff. I haven't really been out in the world, you know, due to the multiple sclerosis. I've just been, you know, I never was a super social person that way. So I get it. Like, she was polite. She's not thinking, well, this old lady might be evil. Did she even have a concept of what evil was? Probably not. Talk about being sheltered. Rosebud was sheltered. Why didn't her father protect her? He didn't even try after he got rid of the spinning wheels. See, you can't do that. Unfortunately, in our day and age, we've got a lot of simpy dads that think, well, my daughter needs her freedom and she's smart and she can handle herself. And, you know, I'm not going to tell her what to think and I'm not going to put rules on her. They will treat their, you know, 14, 15, 16-year-old daughter the same as they treat their sons. Except they will hold, and I don't mean, wait, strike that. They will treat them the same way in that, like, allow them to go places and do things. Now, however, accountability and consequences, generally, the father will intercept from the daughter because it hurts his heart to see his little girl suffer. And that's quite the conundrum, because I get it. The dad doesn't want to see the daughter suffer, but he's not allowed to protect her from that suffering by guarding her from her own poor decisions. It's like when we read the Grimm Brothers version of Little Red Riding Hood, she didn't recognize that the wolf was a bad character when she met him in the woods and she had a chat with him. And her mother, who sent her out there to go to grandma's and bring grandma like the food and stuff, her mother didn't warn her about the wolf. She just warned her not to spill the whiskey she was taking to grandma. She didn't warn her about wolves and such because mom doesn't know either. And it's just not something that we are inherently good at. Discernment isn't something we're good at. It's okay. And it's good to be optimistic and love everyone and give everyone a chance and all that stuff. But somebody's got to keep us from giving, you know, the mass murderer a chance. You know, you see so many women get involved with, you know, the dregs of society. And you go, why? Why is she thought, oh, maybe he's misunderstood, or, you know, he's trying to get his life together and he says I make such a difference. Like, no. And I think that in Sleeping Beauty, in Rosebud, it's like, hey, dads, guard your daughters. In a couple ways, this is dad's fault. Dad didn't have a 13th gold plate, so he just didn't invite the other fairy. I wouldn't want to make a fairy mad. That doesn't seem like a good thing to do. It seems like either just don't use the plates, get another plate, don't invite any fairies. But he wanted the presence of the fairies for his daughter. And yeah, I am blaming the father in this one. I'm stopping myself for a second. I do these things as if they're live on purpose so that we can then chat about them later when it's running as a premiere. I don't know. I think dad needed to do this, but do you notice that over time with feminism, they teach the little girls, girl power, everything. Well, girl power goes up the steps and, you know, gets pricked by a spinning wheel. That's not good. You guys are probably going to say that that's some other euphemism, or this one is 100 Years of Sleep, and it was the thicket grew up. That's really interesting, and just kind of enclosed the whole kingdom, the whole palace and like court and everything. And men kept trying to get through it. This man, is it just luck that it happened to be 100 years was up? Is it divine timing? I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? I know that I am fairly smart, but I also know that in this chat that will be watching this video, I'm going to learn so much from you guys by what you think. Oh, it's so cool. Oh, I love these stories. I just love them. They're so good. And that was kind of fun because like I said, I'd forgotten to look for that one. So I am looking. Think and Repent is one of the. Well, I hope you're a subscriber. One of the channel's followers, and yesterday, I think it was Think and Repent. Gosh, if I'm messing it up, you guys understand. Asked me to look into Robin Hood. Well, goodness gracious, I already knew there were 50 million of Robin Hood stories, but there's a lot. And I went back a ways, and I found some things that were pretty interesting. But I'm working on that because I do want to, branch off of Grimm Brothers, because we're going to run out of Grimm Brothers eventually. And then what are we going to do? There's more, obviously. Hans Christian Andersen, definitely. I want to read you the other ones that are in here in case anybody has a request or anything like that. Okay, we've got Hans in Luck, The Traveling Musicians, The Golden Bird, The Tom Tit and the Bear, The Fisherman and His Wife, we did that one. The 12 Dancing Princesses, we did that one. Rosebud, we just did. Tom Thumb, The Grateful Beasts, Jorinda and Jorindel, The Dog and the Sparrow, Frederick and Catherine, The Three Children of Fortune, King Grizzlybeard, we did that one, that was really good. The Wonderful Musician, The Queen Bee, Snow White and the Rose Red. I don't think that's the one we did. Faithful John, Hansel and Gretel, The Valiant Little Tailor, Rumpelstiltskin, did that one. Little Red Cap, did that one. Old Mother Frost, Cinderella, did that one. The Wolf and the Seven Little Goats, The Elves and the Shoemaker, The Table, The Ass, and the Stick, Roland, The Little Brother and Sister, The Clever Gretel, Little Snow White, that's the one we did. The Golden Goose, The Little Farmer, The Nose, How Six Traveled Through the World, The Goose Girl, The Valiant Tailor, The Six Servants, The Blue Light, The Four Accomplished Brothers, The Almond Tree, Peter and Goatherd. Bless you. Lola's still reminding you to like the video. Peter the Goatherd. Okay. The Giant with Three Golden Hairs. Hairs like hairs. Just not spelled like rabbit hairs. The Water of Life. So those are the tales that I have in this precious, precious book. Just precious. So we've done the Disney fairy tales now. It's officially completed. So, wow. Thank you guys for reading through another great one with me. And thanks for just all of your support in the comments, and thank you for sharing your stories. I know that's not the easiest thing to do, but I love that you're able to read each other's comments and comment back. It's I think it's important. So I'm very grateful for that. And I do love you guys. someone asked me, said something like, well, that's a strong phrase. Indeed it is. And I don't mean it flippantly. When I say I love you guys, I think of my father. I think of my brothers who died in infancy. And if they had lived, what kind of a world would they be in? Would they be married? Would they be divorced? Would they, that kind of a thing? I think of the men I know that I've been close to who have suffered with the injustices of the world. And honestly, I think of myself. I know what it's like to be alone, and I know what it's like to be misunderstood, and I know what it's like to be vilified, not on the level that you guys do. So I do mean it. I do mean it. And I do hope that you found some peace today on a Sunday, and that you found something to feed your soul. And I'll say it again, I love you guys. And I want you to take care of yourselves. It's very important. And I will see you guys on the next one.